Yep. Alright guys, so it is build time, or rebuild time, for this 3.3. So let's get into it here. So we got new piston and sleeve, wrist pin, bearings, connecting rod, blah blah blah. So I'm sure many of you know how to do this, but I thought I'd share it with you anyway. So let's get into it here. Okay, so we're going to pop the cylinder head off here, which I've had many questions about. It is a dynamite cylinder head. Made probably around mid or early 2000s. I don't know if you can still get them or they still make them. I don't think they do. It'd be nice if they did, but anywho. So, this is a 3.3. Obviously. What's his name there? Dustin, I think is what his name is. I can't remember. Sent it to me from the good old Texas. And this one was going to be with the homemade connecting rod, which it's still going to be, but at a later date. So, right to the fucking point. It's hot as hell here today. There was a big fire last night just by my house, unfortunately. Big condo fire went up. The barbecue got out of control and set the siding on fire, and a bunch of people lost their home, unfortunately, which is really, really freaking terrible. So, yeah, it's pretty sad. Got yourselves a lossy, or low-C, however you want to spell it, 3.4 carb on there, as you can see. Next, we're going to need some fire. Listen to those bearings, you can hear them rattling. Terrible. So I need some fire to remove bearings. Come on. Peg. There we go. Alright. So, need an oven mitt too. Forgot about that. Remember, no glove, no love. That's true in many states, or many, well, you know what the hell I'm trying to talk about here, right? Yeah, God. Now what we're going to do after this, take a little bit of super clean inside the engine, kind of clean it up a little bit. Now with super clean, you have to use common sense because it will attack aluminum and remove anodizing, so purple power. So if you're not careful, or you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Because you will F shit up big time. So keep that in mind. Which reminds me, after I do this, I gotta get the bearings on the crank and get those in the freezer. Get those chilling. One. That wasn't so bad now, was it? I'm gonna hit this front guy here. Back. Get some heat on that guy. You don't have to get it super hot, but hot enough. Just to grow the aluminum of sorts, basically. Oh, gonna burn down my kitchen here. There you go. Bearings are removed. Oh shit. I have plants that are hanging in my kitchen. They grow from the ceiling. So I have to watch it with torches and shit because I don't want to fucking don't want to burn them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our new bearings. These are fast steady bearings. The bearings will be the same for a 2.5 and 3.3, as well as the connecting rod will be the same for a 2.5 or 3.3. So this guy can go and hang out over yonder in the sink. Don't go quench it with water because you can warp stuff. You don't want to do that. So you're going to take yourself a little 2-stroke oil here, your favorite kind. I like Golden Spectral, it's really good. You can use clots too if you want. You can use that 5W30 synthetic, but whatever. This is what I just had out on the shelf at the moment. I don't feel like digging through my other stuff, so we're going to use that. So we're going to remove both seals from the rear bearing. Very important, because if you don't, bad things will happen. And we're going to pick out one seal from the front bearing, and of course the unsealed side goes in towards the block. Obviously the sealed side goes out. So look at those freaking other bearings there for a minute. Yeah, look at these things. Toasted to shit. plastic cage. Pretty terrible looking. It actually looks like these Fast Eddies have a better bearing profile, but a bit more heavy duty looking. So, because the Traxxas bearings are really shitty, I don't like them, I won't ever use them. What I do suggest is with 2.5s and 3.3s, because the bearing profile is so small, is change out your bearings and your connecting rod and your wrist pin. So like these parts right here, like every like 2.5 to 3 gallons, which seems excessive, but it will make shit last a lot longer. So I'll put some oil in those bearings there. Put some oil in our crankshaft. Nice and lovely like. So then obviously our big bearing goes on first. Doesn't really matter what way it goes on. The plastic cage ones it does, the steel ones it doesn't. And then we're going to put our seal side facing in, because what we're going to do is drop this through the front of the block. This is going to stay in. We're going to pull it out, and then we're going to drop the rest of the crank through the back side of the block. So now you understand what I'm talking about. And this goes in the freezer for like 30 minutes. So now that we got that chilling, I'm going to clean up this engine block, and then we're going to build the piston and sleeve assembly as well as the connecting rod together. So I will be right back momentarily. Beer break in between. Ah, yeah. Okay, so block's cooled down. We got some super clean on the Q-tip. We're going to go in there. And if you look, see that? It's cleaned up all that varnish in there. That's what you want to do. See now it's coming out nice and clean? So we're going to do that all the inside of the block. Don't ever soak your engine block in super clean. Like, never. If you do, you will wreck shit. Don't use hot water, because it'll make a reaction happen. And it's caustic, and caustic will attack aluminum. But you can see how it cleans up all that varnish nice like that? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to use cold water only and Q-tips and some super clean. Go through the pin bore. There's a little tiny oil port right here. Get yourself a pin and go through it. Make sure it's not plugged. Blow some carb clean or brake clean through it, and really take your time cleaning the inside of the block. Clean the exhaust port, clean all the screw holes and everything. And pause while I do that, because it takes forever. Okay, so we're all done with the cleaning. As you can see, inside the block, nice and shiny clean. I went at it with some Q-tips for about 10-15 minutes. You're never going to get all this staining off. There's still a little bit there, here and there, but it's good and clean. Make sure you get that little port right there. Take yourself a little carb cleaner. Make sure it passes through. Now this block is going to be covered in water, so you can heat dry it in your oven for like 20 minutes, or you can use whatever you want to do that with. Now, okay, sorry, throw those seals out because they're no freaking good no more. Right. Get a piece of paper towel down so we can see what the hell we're doing here. So we're going to need our piston, we're going to need our rod and pin here. So I'm going to unpackage those and get back to you in a minute. Okay. We are back. Obviously you can tell. Right, so there's a right and wrong way to do this here. So you need some oil. Keep that on standby there. So we're going to take our piston. And we know that the cutout side of the piston faces this way, right? Faces towards the front of the block. Because if you put it back in, this cutout will expose the inner side of the exhaust port. You'll lose your crankcase pulse. So it has to go like that. Right, so we know that's that way. And if we look, there's a little chamfer right here on the connecting rod on the bottom pin bore. A little chamfered kind of angled in piece like that. That faces towards the crank. So they both face like that. The chamfered end here and this cutaway both face the same direction. The piston pin, the open side, faces towards the spot where you put your piston clip through, as you can see. Okay, so I've already taken and cleaned these parts. So I take our pin and dip that in some oil. Put that in there. Like I said, you can't really have too much oil here, so put some oil there. Dip the end of our connecting rod, because these are the highest stressed parts of a new engine, and you want to make sure they have oil. So there we go, our assembly's together now. So next comes the most tricky part, which a lot of people have trouble with, and that is getting a little clip in there. And these little clips right here, luckily Traxxas provides you with 2, which is really nice. And they're not completely stuck to your fingers with oil, like mine are. You're going to need, I recommend doing this inside of a large Ziploc bag so you can still see what you're doing. So if the clip does fly away, it'll go ting, and it'll be gone forever. And you cannot put your engine together without it. So we're going to take our clip, and my pliers are pretty wore out here, but you need a really, really good set of needle nose pliers to do this. I think the best set you can possibly get your hands on. Try to do this because these things are so tiny it's hard to hold on to them. There we go. I guess G-springs, whatever you want to call them. E-clips, G-springs, whatever. G-strings. G-strings. There you go. So like that. Alright, grab our oily piston here. We're going to roll. Sometimes easier said than done. Sometimes they don't really want to go in. My pliers are kind of boogered up here, so I might have to grab another set to do this. These pliers are just about as old as I am. There we go. And there we go. That's just almost all the way in, and you got to make sure it all click in. You'll hear it go snap when it goes in there. So it's in there. Now, important. Take one of your Allen cap screwdrivers and push on the opposite side of the pin and push. You don't have to crank the shit out of it, but you gotta, you know, firmly push on it. That way you know that that clip is seated all the way, because if it's not, it'll bounce out and it'll take your sleeve and piston out and destroy everything. So you don't really want to do that. Just let that sit in some oil there. Freaking, who cares? Oil it up. Doesn't really matter too much. Save your other clip. Don't lose them. Keep them around, because if you lose one, you're kind of screwed. Right, so we're going to get on to the bearings here shortly. I'm just waiting for them to freeze up a little bit more. Gonna drink some more beer first. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's bearing time. So what we're going to do, take some oil on our finger. A little bit in there. A little bit down yonder. A little bit in there. A little bit in that pin bore down there. And set the fucking thing on fire. Alright, it's gonna get our shit out of the freezer. It's frozen. Nice and good, like. You don't have to leave it very long. Some people are like, oh, you're gonna leave it overnight. That absolutely means nothing, because you can only cool something so far before it's completely frozen. So their argument about overnight freezing, you're an idiot. Sorry. Like 20 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes is all you need. You're not going to get it any colder than that. You can try, but it's got liquid nitrogen. Or in case my day, it's liquid fartrogen, so. You guys even see this shit? You got, get some heat in that block. You know, there's a lot of people out there that say, hey man, why don't you get one of those bearing tools? Well, because I do so many different engines in a week for people in my area. I don't even really film half it, because it's just the same repetitive bullshit. But I don't actually have a 3.3 rebuild video. So I thought, well, this gives me an opportunity to make one. Because people keep asking, what's the difference between a 3.3 and a 2.5 rebuild? Well, they're both exactly the same, but people for some reason still don't understand that. We'll keep that heat moving. Well, all that crackling here is just any moisture kind of bubbling away. It's steam in the oil. So we're going to take our... Nope. Okay, front bearing in. See? And then we're going to throw just a little fucking sticky. That oil, super protective plate. Spectral, when it gets cold, it gets a little bit sticky. We're just going to throw a little bit more heat right in the back here. It's going to build up what we lost. And should be about good. Now, people say, oh, you're torching it, you're going to ruin it. Well, no, like I said, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And, a lot of people do them, unfortunately, the wrong way. Oh, fucking front bearing came out. Damn it. So I'm going to fix that. Just going to heat it up and give it a little bit of a tap on the counter here. That's about it. Pause while I do that. Alright, our bearings are in, and when you, this thing's really, really hot, but about 300 degrees roughly, and maybe 285 degrees, something like that. And when you do get your bearings in, make sure you give the crank a sharp tug, and it'll seat the rear bearing, but beautifully smooth, nice and lovely. So we're going to let that cool off. I don't suggest quenching it with water. I do suggest leaving it to air cool, or you can stick it in the freezer if you want, just to help things cool off a little bit if you're in a rush like I am. So I'm going to do that. Anyways, back in a flash. While we wait, we hydrate. Oh yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, that's just going to sit there and hang out for a little bit. So we got our piston and sleeve here. Just dump a little bit more Spectro in there. Like I said, you can just use, I suggest using a synthetic oil for this. You can use Klotz Super Technoplate or Klotz Castor Oil or Blenzol or what do you call it there? Maxima 927, Super M, Super or K2, whatever you want, really. But make sure it's a synthetic. I think that's just a little bit better than using conventional motor oil. But I mean, if that's all you have is like say just 10W30 for your old fucking F-150, then fine, use it. But if you do have crankshafts that have that silicone kind of plug in it, be careful because some of the oils can attack that. So just keep that in mind. This stuff doesn't attack silicone. Neither does anything from Klotz. So I've never had that issue for assembly lubricants. And you can use stuff like Lucas Air Tool oil is perfect as well. You can use that or just whatever. So, but WD-40 is not an assembly lubricant. It's not an oil. It's water dispersant Formula 40. It's mostly kerosene, so it's going to allow full metal-to-metal contact, which you do not want. So that's why we use things like that, or like this, whatever. So anyways, I will be back shortly here with the assembly video, or that portion. The next video you guys are going to see, this is Brian's new Mach 28 Big Red. Friggin' pretty attractive piece. So this is going to go to his Kyosho buggy to replace the broken Kalari engine. So before we're going to put this in there, I'm going to take this apart. We're going to tear it down, we're going to oil everything, inspect everything in it, and just make sure everything's golden, and we're going to slap it in there as along with a new Kalari pipe as well. So you guys will see another video of this maybe tomorrow. Alright, so it's been about 25 minutes in the freezer. Still pretty warm, but handleable, manageable, whatever. Okay, so piston and sleeve time. Okay, we are going to take some oil, put on that crank pin, put some oil in there. We're going to put our piston with that groove, that notch. Come on. It's always something, isn't it? Oh, for fuck's sake. There we go. So that groove faces towards the front, like this. So we're going to put our piston up around, top dead center. Hopefully I don't run into fucking camera space here. Up around, top dead center, and just pick up the rod, drop it on to your crank, like so. And now obviously our sleeve, we know that the big exhaust, or that's the exhaust port there. Put some 2-stroke oil on it. 2-stroke oil inside. Remember, lick it before you stick it. So, take our sleeve. It's going to line up. There's a notch. And line up the notch. And it should go click. There we go. Swing. And we got stuck at top dead center. That's normal. That's because the engine's still tight and new. Okay, so we have a rotating assembly here. So next, cylinder head time. All right. So you cylinder head screws. Screws for the head. Screw to the head. Head screws, whatever. There should be 4. Oh wait, yeah, there's 5. Hold on. Yeah, I forgot. Derp. Traxxas motors use 5 screws. So just hit those a little bit of WD-40 there, just so they're not dry. Or your favorite penetrating oil. Got our cylinder head here. Dynamite logo goes towards the front. Sounded like the guy upstairs just farted on the floor. Or shit himself completely. Make sure your head gasket is there. So this engine is going to be run with 20 and 25%, so I'm not going to bother changing the head shims or the glow plug for that fact. And we're going to be running an OS-LC3, which is a standard reach long plug, which is designed for Traxxas engines. So that's going to be your best plug you can get for this engine. Or the LC4 if you want mediums. Don't go putting cold plugs and a lot of their fuckery either. You don't need any of that. Oh, what, it's a hot day, put a cold plug. No, don't do that either. Because if you go putting cold plugs that need leaner tuning on hot days, which already need leaner tuning, you're going to fucking fry your shit. So don't do that. It is not necessary. Pick your plug and stick with it all year. Can't stress that enough. For some reason, people don't seem to get it. What's the torque specifications? Click, torqued. Just going to go around. How are we doing here? 21 minutes. All right, we're good. These parts are already previously cleaned. One-way bearing, one-way shaft, whatever you call it. Fuck. Other screws here. Okay, so we got that. We got our pull start. We got other screws. So I'm gonna just give this guy a little dab of oil here. Nothing special. Our back plate's already clean. Stick this guy through. You do not need to go siliconing the shit out of your engine. So we know that that side faces up. We're going to face that side down. Doesn't really matter because the side's already worn. We're going to make sure our connecting rod's at the bottom. We're going to line those two up. Push them together. Hold the crank. And you'll hear it go click. And it'll just drop right together like so. 4 more screws and we're almost to the races here, boys. Hopefully I have enough camera space for this. I think I do. We'll see if the video suddenly cuts off, you'll know why. Go right to the end here. And yeah, these back plates, they get tired. The bushing wears out inside here and they leak. So I do suggest replacing the starter shaft and one-way, or the back plate and starter shaft once in a while because they do get tired and kind of shitty, and maybe throw some O-rings in there once in a while and keep everything kind of nice and fresh. There is a shim. Shim goes there. We got our lossy 3.4 carb. A little bit of oil. We already know what way it goes on. Push our pinch bolt back. Make sure your O-ring down there isn't damaged. Make sure this one isn't damaged. Make sure they're both in very good shape. And should be able to slip these two guys together. There we go. I'm not going to tighten this up because I don't have the right size socket for it at the moment, but you want to make sure that this is angled to the correct angle that you need it at, and then tighten this up. Also, this is the carburetor arm off of Dynamite 19 that I put on the lossy 3.4 carburetor, just to give it a better range of motion. I'm going to put on our pull starter, actually a couple of screws. Excuse me. A little more choking I would have started. So we know that our bearing will turn the engine only in one direction. Is that a band, one direction? Yeah, there we go. And that will be a 2.5 millimeter hex. Or 2 millimeter, sorry. There is one more screw that's supposed to go up in that top corner. I lost it. And the Dynamite 19s only use 3 screws, so don't worry about it. If you only have 3, you'll be fine. And we have our exhaust. So, and if you over tighten, you'll yank the threads out of the block, or you'll crush these things and spread them, which you don't really want to do. I'm going to take and super clean this and get all the varnish off at a later date, but we're just going to stick her back on there for now. And that is a 2.5 hex. These short screws are actually too short, so I'm not going to tighten them up very much, just a little bit, just to snug them. And that's it. There you go. Your 3.3 engine is now fully rebuilt and ready to go. Yeah, if the crankshaft has issues, I mean, oftentimes these things aren't really worth rebuilding. Trade them into Traxxas and get another one through their power-up program. But Here in Canada, this engine costs $330 brand new, $325 actually, so $330 with taxes. So a lot of times people here end up actually rebuilding them because it's cheaper than buying a new one, because they only give you about 20 bucks off when you do the power up program in Canada, which is a fucking rip off and a half. But now you guys have seen this engine, and I have talked to a friend of mine who does have some old school RB mods parts, and we're working on a deal currently on that, and they are going to be for this engine, and I'm going to be getting a 2.5 as well. And you guys will see me rebuild that at a later date, or get a new one and modify it or do something stupid with it. Anyways, it's that time. Anyways, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that rebuild video, and keep on burning nitro out there, man. Later. Another vid coming soon.